doing today? I'm impressed. So many of you are here at 10:50, your new start time. How do you feel about that? It's like anything else, you get used to it, right? Okay, so welcome to Intermediate Accounting 2. We just keep going, right? So I know a few of you took the course, took Intermediate Accounting 1 last summer, so you had a big lull, but we're happy to have you anyway. That's good. So we pick up this semester right with chapter 10 of the textbook. So if you bought a book last semester, then you should be good to go. If you rented it, you might have to re-rent it. I'm not really sure how many days that rental's good for. But I don't have a problem with people sharing textbook in here. We do have open note exams. We don't have open book exams. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes going through the syllabus. I know most of you have heard this already yesterday, maybe once or twice. And then I have a little pre-test fun for you. It's not graded. Relax. See how much you remember. Wake the brain up a little bit with some terms. And if you have your laptops with you, and if not, that's okay too. And then we'll jump into chapter 10 for a little bit. But I won't torture you too much today. And I am recording just to make sure that's working, because it doesn't always, when there's a break, sometimes people are in here messing around, and I just want to make sure it's working. All right, so important stuff. My office hours are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to 11, Tuesdays, 1:30 to 3:30. I am here on Thursdays. I just don't have designated office hours, and you know that if those times don't work for you, you can find a time that does work for you. I am here every day of the week. So let's see here. Yeah, so we're heading into 202. Again, just a continuation. Well, actually, we didn't actually have enough time in 201 to finish covering all of the asset topics we needed to cover. And so we're going to talk about long-term assets, property, plant, and equipment, all that good stuff, chapter 11 or chapter 10. And then we'll head into the liabilities, actually 10 and 11, I think. Then we'll head into the liabilities and equity side of things. To round out the semester. So this is the worst part of this class. Can you identify what it is by looking at the syllabus? The final exam. Look at the date. Dun dun dun. It's a Saturday. Oh, it sucks. I've had Saturday finals before, but I haven't had one in a while. So the finals run I want to say Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So like the last day of I know. The last day of the semester is April 29th, which is a Wednesday. They think you're studying on Thursday, so it's called study day on Thursday. And then Friday starts, May 1st starts finals. And so Friday, Saturday, no Sundays, thankfully. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is I think how that works. So I'm just warning you now. We have to be here Saturday morning. 10:10. I'll bring donuts or something. Try and make it not feel so awful. I don't know. Or whatever you guys might want. I don't know. You let me know. Okay. I don't like it any more than you do. Trust me. Textbook, if you do need to rent it, use that ISBN number. I know there are a few different release versions, and I don't call them copies necessarily. There's an edition. This is the 11th edition. But instead of publishing new editions, now they're taking current editions and just like making some changes and calling it the 2025 or the 2026 or whatever it is release. So if you have a book and it's the 2025 release or the 11th edition, you're fine. Your problems may not always match mine, but we'll work that out. If you recall from last semester, we do some case studies at the end of every chapter in here. If you took the class online in the summer, you didn't have that, but you will in here in the face-to-face class. And I will just upload the correct case questions to the assignment itself so that we're all on the same page with that case. Yeah, and does anybody remember the company that we did cases for? Pfizer, there we go, somebody remember, yes, all right, Pfizer. We'll continue with the Pfizer cases because those are good for practical applications, seeing how the things we discuss in the chapters, how they actually relate to real companies. You'll need a laptop occasionally. I don't mind if you have one in here as long as, I'm not, if you're not paying attention, that's on you. But you will use it to upload those cases and do research and look at financial statements, all that good stuff. So I'm not going to read through all that. I'm going to jump down to, well, first of all, the academic honesty policy. I think everybody is aware of that. Just some tips for how to be successful in this face-to-face class. And I know that should say 202, so I'll fix that. You should be, and you know, I know people are like, read? You expect me to read? Yes, I actually do expect you to read. I'm not telling you read pages, you know, 7 to 40 or whatever, but you should be skimming the material. If you're at a minimum, I give you guys the PowerPoints, and actually re-uploaded those this morning because I made a couple of tweaks. But all my PowerPoints have notes on the bottom of them. And so if you don't like to read the textbook, then it would be helpful to kind of glance through the notes on the PowerPoints, because that's kind of the summarized version of what you'll read in the textbook. And I do my best to draw out of the chapters what I want to cover, and that's kind of what you're seeing in the PowerPoints, because we certainly do not have time to cover everything. And so I have to be selective. But it is helpful if you're reviewing that material. You've got 4 exams, including the final, and it'll work the same way. The final is comprehensive. There's no new material on the final. So we stick to that same policy. You'll have 3 exams, and then the final is cumulative. And towards the end of the semester, you'll have the last exam like a week or so before the final, and then we have some review, and then the final. So if you weren't in my classes at all yesterday, I do have an updated classroom behavior cell phone policy, and this really honestly doesn't apply. I mean, I didn't have any trouble with you guys. Cell phones, if I see you on it, I'm just going to mark you absent. No more, you know, I might tell you if I see you on it too often, then I might mention it to you, but you need to remember that if I see you on it, you're just going to be marked absent. And I do have an attendance policy, and if you have more than 5 absences, I start deducting 1% from your final grade, 1 percentage point from your final grade. So I'm just tired of the cell phone thing. Unless you have some kind of medical issue or emergency, family emergency, there's no reason for you to be on it. I don't care if your mom texts you in the middle of the hour, she can wait, unless it's an emergency, of course, right? I don't bring my cell phone to class except for to do stupid 2-factor authentication when I have to. You know, so there is, unless again, and those urgent things don't come up that often, then you can wait. And if you don't want to wait, and I see you, then I'm absent. And then at the end of the semester, when your grade isn't what you thought it is, and I tell you, well, you were on your cell phone 7 times, then you're going to get mad. I'm not going to care. So just throwing it out there now, okay? Anyway, and laptops and tablets, you guys are fine. That's just kind of standard. If I think that you're doing something other than what you're supposed to be doing, though, I will tell you about it. I don't mind if you have snacks and drinks. You guys know that. You just no 7-course meals, please. Headphones, not while we're lecturing and we're working together as a group. After, you know, if I give an assignment, which I frequently do, let you guys work on stuff in class. If you want to listen to music, that's fine. New hoodie policy, and you might think, well, that's strange, but again, nobody in here is the reason for the policy. You know, every time there's a policy, there's always somebody, right? Somebody along the line. You guys are good, but I don't care if you have a hoodie on. Obviously, that's what most of you wear every day. And if you walk in here and it's pulled up, that's okay, but as soon as you sit down, you got to pull it down. Because I've had too many folks listening to music, watching videos, watching film, doing all kinds of stuff because they don't think I know there's an earbud in their ear because their hoodie's cinched so tight, right? You'd be amazed at what you can figure out just by being observant, watching people's facial expressions and body movements and stuff like that. You can kind of figure out what people are doing. So again, I got tired of getting irritated about it, so you just have to pull your hoodie down now. And as far as exams go, again, nothing new there. You can wear a baseball hat, but it needs to be backwards, and if you have another type of hat on, I just need to see your ears. Someone asked me yesterday, why can't I have a baseball hat? I said, screw that baseball hat down real tight on your head. He said, okay, because I can see your eyes. You know, anyway, distractions are, try to eliminate them as much as possible. At least for me, I do. You know, as far as communication, guys, if you need help, come see me. Don't wait till it's too late. And if you think, well, I don't really want her help, that's okay. But, you know, sometimes when you're trying to figure something out, it takes 2 minutes for me to explain something to you a different way. than the way I explained it in class, or to clarify something. There's lots of things I can say, lots of ways I can say things, and yet, you still might not have grasped it because I don't have a lot of time in class. I gotta pick what I think is the best way to explain something, and it might not be the best way for you. And so, don't let yourself get too caught up in that and fall too far behind. So make sure you're staying on top of things. Cases and quizzes are relatively easy points. The quizzes will work the same as they did last semester. I just open them up, you take them. I'm not, and you guys know I wasn't real hard about the due dates. Sometimes a due date would pass and then I might remind you, or I might shot somebody an email and said, hey, you never did this quiz. I want you to do the quizzes. The due dates are just kind of a reminder that they're there. They're not hard deadlines though. And those quizzes are just kind of reinforcing mostly terminology and some basic concepts that are important for you to kind of have a grasp of before we go ahead and do some kind of problem that has something to do with that. I do collect homework, and so you guys know how that works too. It's no different here than it is in any of my other courses. Homework is based on effort and completion. And maybe some of you found yourself in the position last semester you did 1 of 3 problems and you got a red X and not a green check because that's not completed homework. Or you jotted down like 3 numbers and thought that I was going to take that as an effort, right? So unfortunately, that piece of that is up to me, right? That's to my discretion. The benefit is if you just make an attempt and you try to finish it and do it and it's wrong, I still give you that green check mark, right? And then I give homework back to you and we go over the solutions together. And if you have mistakes, obviously you learn what you did wrong, you fix it, you hang on to that homework, and it becomes a vital piece of information or a resource for your exam. So exams, I do allow notes. You can use your notes, and that's homework. That's handouts that I give you. That's your notebook. That's PowerPoints if you printed them out. No, so you're not allowed to take photos of things and print them out. Not that I come around and check all that often, but I trust you're not doing that. No one should be taking photos of my screen or homework. Right? Don't be lazy. You don't learn the homework by taking a picture of it and then trying to look at it later. You learn the homework by actually doing it and writing it down yourself. Okay? So those points are easy. Those are easy points. And you can see that they account for actually, do I not have that added up right? Oh no, I do. Okay, sorry. I mean, they're 350 out of your 800 points, and so that's a significant impact on your final grade, which I think some of you probably figured out last semester. Either in either direction, right? It either helped you, or if you weren't too keen on keeping up with the homework, it did hurt you. So attendance policy, that's not changed for me either. I mean, university excused absences, they run the gamut there, so you can take a look at that. And what's not specifically on there, like death in your family or close, oh, no, that's right. Or something like that, or something that maybe not specifically outlined. And again, you don't have to tell me your whole life story. I don't want you telling me anything you're not comfortable telling me. But communication is important. And so, that kind of also goes into this whole attendance policy thing. Again, I'll be recording every session, provided that the lecture capture is working. I know sometimes the sound isn't always great. Attendance, you've got four opportunities, they're not opportunities, they're missed opportunities. If you miss more than 4, you have more than 4 unexcused absences, then I start deducting 1% from your grade. If this was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's 5. But this is Tuesday, Thursday, so that's 2 weeks of class. You shouldn't be missing 2 weeks of class, right, for no good reason. So those are unexcused absences. If you have perfect attendance, I'll add 2 percentage points at the end of the semester to your final grade. That's not 2 points, that's 2%. Some of you benefited from that policy last semester. I won't call anyone out in here, but I think you know who you are. So if you're borderline, you're sitting like at a 91, and you really put a lot of effort into, your exams. Maybe you're not the best test taker. I'm not the best test taker. I don't have a problem telling you that. But you did all your homework, you showed up, you were sitting at a 91, you get a 93, that's an A, right? So it's more than just assessment, exam assessment. And so if you just miss one day, then it's 1%. You'd be surprised how many people are on that cusp at the end of the semester. I kind of pay attention to that because obviously it's a the policy that I have to pay attention to, and I have to keep good records of your attendance if I'm going to apply the policy. So, and for those of you that had perfect attendance and had a 98, I'm sorry, it doesn't really help you, because a 98 is an A and a 100's an A, right? I know you'd like to see that maybe next to your grade, but just know what you achieved. You and I will know. No one else has to know, right? Tardiness, again, I don't notice any issues in this class. And I'm talking about being chronically late. So again, it's a disruption to the class. And occasionally, I know it happens, you're somewhere else, something's going on, whatever. You're talking to somebody, I get it. But this is like, habitual tardiness, because it's annoying to me. And it might not be annoying to other students, but they're looking at you because, they hear rustling and people moving around, and then it's a distraction. So please try to be in the room at the start of class time, which is now 10:50. Exams, you're to take them as scheduled. If you are not here for travel, obviously, you can take a exam in the testing center. I don't have a problem with that. What I don't like is you just waking up and being like, you know what, not feeling it today, just not going to go. That's a problem for me. So unless you are sick and you can prove that you're sick, you need to suck it up and come to the exam. If you let me know in advance that you're having an issue, that's fine, I'll work with you. But, waking up, unless you're deathly ill, and I know that happens, but then you can go to the health center and they can confirm that you're deathly ill. Because otherwise I can't take your word for it, and it's just, I just can't. I mean, we have too many people that do it all the time, and I don't really want to have to worry about that. Nobody's withdrawing, I hope. So then course schedule, this is just, we're going to cover 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then we do a little bit of 15, we jump to 18 and 19, and then we do a little bit of 21. So we do skip a couple chapters in the second half of this intermediate accounting course. So the condensed day next Monday doesn't impact us, but if you need to take a look at that for the sake of your Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, by all means, please do. I know I'm impacted there on Monday. And the rest is just university types of policies. You can take a look if you need to. The syllabus, I didn't finish my sentence, sorry. The syllabus is always on the home page. You can download it and take a look at it anytime you need to. Contact information is here. The modules, everything is pretty much set up like I set up all my courses. So you've got week 1, you've got your chapter resources. You've got some PowerPoints here. You've got your little pre-test. So if you guys have your laptop, how about getting those out? And if not, look at your neighbor's laptop. It's okay. You can share. This is just for fun. Right? Don't we have lots of fun in accounting? Chapter 10 is all about property, plant, and equipment. Okay, so it's my memories come back. Chapter 10 is like the first half of the discussion on property, plant, and equipment. We talk about acquisition. And in Accounting 101, which was a long time ago, right? We talked about property, plant, and equipment. We talked about the acquisition, which just means obtaining or purchasing property, plant, and equipment. Then we talked about like the kinds of adjustments we make as we use it up. We had depreciation, right? You guys remember that? Sometimes we have additional expenses that we incur. We make something better. We have to repair something. So there are activities that take place while we own it, and then at the end of the asset's useful life to us, we get rid of it. So we're going to be talking about all of those things, but it's split up over a couple of chapters. So we're talking about acquisitions specifically in chapter 10. So with the quiz, it's not a quiz, it's a pre-test. And again, it's not graded. I just am curious as to how many of these terms you might remember or be familiar with. Now, you don't need to cheat and Google everything. That's not that important. But just go through, and if you want to, okay, fine, whatever. We're having fun with this. So there are, I like my matching, right? I like my terms, yes? Accounting is the language of business, so we have to learn the language. So here's some terminology. And there's more than one question, by the way. I think there's 4 questions. I just want to see what you remember. And if you don't remember anything, it's okay. Now you have some of these words in your head. And maybe some of these you can figure out, like if I'd stop talking, you could read these. But that's all I want you to do. Just play around with it here a little bit for a couple minutes. You can work together if you want. All of these things will be things we talk about, though. yeah, you could just type in the text box like the phrase, what goes with the phrase, right? So cost to bring an asset to its original condition. Let's try that one together. Oh, that's a restoration cost. You're right. That's pretty, I mean, that sounds like what it's supposed to be, right? Some of these are kind of common sense. So just see what you can come up with, and then you can come back and check it later on. You can check your accuracy later on if you go through some of those things. Doesn't that sound like it's written down? Terrible. I don't like. I mean, I like that. I take that. Very good. When the sun is out, play golf, you know, outdoor. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah, I think the skiers goes around here. My skiers, who lives in skiers? You guys go around here? like it so far? Good. Is Dennis still working? Or is he retired? Yeah, he's gotta be pretty old.
He's still like, I think stops in.
Yeah.
Does like
Okay.
some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, my sister-in-law Mary worked there for probably close to 30 years, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, she just retired only a couple of years ago, which, like I said, she's there all the time. I'm like, are you really, are you working, or are you just popping in to say hi? She still has friends, I think, that she sees there, so. All right, now I know who. How we doing?
Like, what are you doing here?
Is this even accounting? Oh, are you being dramatic? A little bit. Is this even accounting? Let me look. Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, we're talking about assets, right? Now, I said property, plant, and equipment. What I didn't say was intangible assets. Do you guys remember those? From Accounting 101, maybe a little bit. What's the difference between what's something that's tangible and something that's intangible? So I'm sitting on the desk, probably shouldn't be, but it is what? Tangible, because you can see it, touch it, right? Yeah, intangible. It doesn't have, so when you think, when I say intangible, the phrase that comes to mind is no physical substance. So intangible, it exists like in a legal form of some type. And so we'll talk about intangibles, which is what some of that stuff that you're looking at there right now, Tyler. Cloud computing, like I know very little about, generally speaking, but. That's okay. This is the point is, you see, now you have these words in your head, right? How's the wedding planning coming?
Oh, good.
Are you really doing anything, or are you just saying yes, no, that's nice?
We got a DJ.
Oh, there you go. That's important.
That is important.
It's very important. Yes, dear, no, dear, whatever you want, dear. Yeah. You should recognize the terms in question 4 at least. Yeah, okay, good. All right, you guys ready? I'm not going to go over those just right now. But now you'll have, some of these terms will be in your head, right? All right, let's take a look here. Let's get started. Oh, I know. I promise this will all trigger memories from Accounting 101. Should, to some extent. It should say, listen, if it sounds familiar to some degree, that's all I'm asking for. And if you have no idea, I don't know what to tell you. So property, plant, and equipment. If you look at what's on the left versus what's on the right, everything, on the left is tangible, right? You know, it doesn't say the word tangible there, but our long-term assets in general, we call them long-lived. In other words, they're going to last longer than a year typically, and they're revenue producing, meaning what? Yes, you're using them to make money. Exactly. Yes, they are used in operations to make money. And so property, plant, and equipment, I like to refer to that as PPE for short. That does help when we're writing things out. And you can see what it includes there. And those are very general categories. Land, buildings, equipment, machinery, furniture. Sometimes you see furniture and fixtures as like the phrase that's used for furniture or with furniture. Autos and trucks, all very common. And then you have your natural resources, which if you had me for Accounting 101, I only really touch on it very briefly. The accounting is the same for all of these for the most part. I mean, the basic accounting rules, which we'll review obviously, but a natural resource is anything that's extracted from the ground. So you can look at it that way. So we've got oil and gas deposits, timber tracts, mineral deposits, gold, silver, that kind of stuff. And then on the right-hand side there, we've got our intangibles. Again, they lack physical substance. And with some of these, the extent to which you're using them to generate revenue and how long they're going to last is questionable. For example, like the timing of the future benefit, I guess I should say. So patents, copyrights, they have limitations as to how long those things last. Anybody remember how long a patent is good for? Guesses? It's 20 years. What is a patent anyway?
It was like the right to like how you make something or like the production of something.
Yeah, it's the legal right to produce a product, and no one else can copy it during the life of that patent. So I like to use drugs. That's not. I was going to say I like to use drugs as an example, and then I know, right? I like to use drugs as an example. Don't forget the as example part. I mean, my goodness. Okay. No, I do not use drugs. I like to use drugs as an example with patents because when a new drug is developed and the drug manufacturing company gets a patent on it, that means that no other drug manufacturers can copy that drug until that patent expires, which is like 20 years. So what does that drug manufacturer do with that drug? Well, they charge as much as they can charge, right? Why? Because there is no competition. And because as soon as competition and other similar products enter the market, what does that do to price? It drives down price. So oftentimes when there's a new drug and they're talking about how expensive it is on the news, because that's usually where you hear these things, right? These life-saving drug is $7,000 a month, right? It's because there is no other drug. Is that morally and ethically okay? That's a whole other conversation, right? And that could be a matter of opinion, because you're not breaking any laws, are you? Well, yeah, that was, oh gosh, yeah. Yes, it wasn't patented. So anybody can make a version of it, right? I think back to like when depression medication first became a thing decades ago. There was only one, I want to say it was Paxil, but I could be wrong. But for a long time, there was only really one option, and that was drug. It was expensive, right? So as those patents expire and more competition enters the market, and you have more options, that will drive the price of drugs down. So oftentimes when they come up with something new that like a cure for something that they never had before, or a treatment for some kind of disease or illness that you haven't seen before, those things are quite expensive, right? And I was talking to someone yesterday about somebody was like, oh, I get this on the black market now. And I'm like, oh, I don't think that's very safe, But when you're talking about like, you've got, in some people's opinions, life-saving medication, right, that they need and can't get a fair price for it, I guess I see why people get desperate. I've heard of people going to Canada and getting their medication that way. And I mean, obviously the internet has made all that a lot easier, to access other options, but you got to be a little careful there. The thing with, I know we got off tangent on that a little bit, but 20 years seems like a long time, and it is, right? If you're the person who's sick and waiting for some kind of life-saving medicine to drop to a price that you can afford. Copyrights, the thing about a copyright is it is the life of the producer of the artistic work, the literary work, the musical work, plus 70 years. So a lot of times, like when they like remake a movie and you're like, that movie is so old, why are they remaking it now? It's because whoever produced the movie died, plus add 70 years to that, and that's how long you had to wait till you could copy it, okay? Trademarks, what's a trademark? Yeah, it's not necessarily the name, but it's some kind of symbol that represents the name of the company. You're all wearing them, right? I don't think there's a single one of you that doesn't have a trademark on your body somewhere, I'm sure. The thing with trademarks is they can be, they expire, but they can be renewed immediately, like indefinitely. So no one's ever gonna steal like the Nike swoosh or the Under Armour or whatever that thing is, right? Nobody's stealing those because they're just gonna continue to re-register those. What about a franchise? What's a franchise?
The right to sell a bigger company's products.
That's exactly what it is. We probably are most familiar with like fast food franchises, right? Like McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, right? You know, the great thing about if you want to own something like that, there's a lot of upfront costs, there's a lot of fees because all the hard work's been done for you. You don't have to worry about a product, right? It's already the product. You don't have to worry about advertising. You don't have to worry about customer base so much. You don't have to worry about location. So there are a lot of fees and things that you do pay to get those benefits, and you have to go through all kinds of corporate training and stuff. How about goodwill? You guys think about goodwill. We're going to talk about it. Goodwill's one of those things. Oh, it's kind of there's a very gray area associated with goodwill. Always has been. Accounting rules have changed for goodwill since I was a student, a long time ago, a couple of times over, even as I've taught over the years, because it is such a kind of a big question mark with goodwill. Does anybody know what it is?
It's the selling cost minus the net realizable value.
Oh, look at you. Yeah, so goodwill is kind of like an abstract idea of sorts. When somebody wants to sell a business and they advertise a certain price, that price is usually a lot higher than the value of the assets that are being sold. So like, let's say you have there's been some kind of restaurant in your family for decades long, and there's all kinds of special secret sauce and recipes and all kinds of stuff that nobody else but your family has. But nobody in your family wants the business anymore, so you're gonna sell it. And you have this very modest building, and your equipment isn't all that fancy, but you want like $10 million for your business, right? And maybe all of the property, plant, and equipment you're selling along with it's only worth maybe $1 million. What's the other $9 million for? And in your mind, it's goodwill. The only time you get to record goodwill is when you purchase another business. So we'll talk more about that too as we go through. So this is a great slide because it lists the various types of tangible assets. And again, you guys have access to this, so just pay attention for now. Equipment, land. So I actually want to make sure that you guys remember the difference between land and land improvements here too. But a description, so the definition, which is very helpful. And then what do we mean by acquisition? Well, if I'm buying land, that's what I mean by acquisition. To acquire means to obtain. You can obtain that through purchasing. You can also obtain it though through gifting or donating. So acquisition does not necessarily mean you spend any money. For the most part, it does initially for us as we go through these transactions. But property, plant, and equipment in general is productive assets that derive their value from long-term use in operations rather than from resale. So in other words, the company is getting its value out of these assets by using them to make money, not reselling them and selling them for a price higher than what they paid. Right? That's another way you could make money. But primarily, they're used in operations to generate revenue. When we purchase property, plant, and equipment, we debit the property, plant, and equipment account specifically, land, buildings, machinery, equipment, trucks, whatever it is. And we include in that all expenditures necessary to get the asset in condition and location for its intended use. So it's not just the price of the asset. If you paid for shipping to get it to you, that gets included in the cost of the asset. If you had to have somebody come and install a piece of equipment to get it ready to go, the cost of installation gets added to the cost of the asset. So it's not just the invoice price, as you'll see on Thursday when we do some problems. Equipment, broad term that includes machinery, computers, other office office equipment, vehicles, furniture, and fixtures. So some people might just use a broader category equipment. Mostly what I see is equipment includes machinery, computers, office equipment, and then vehicles are typically separate, furniture and fixtures are typically separate, but they can be included in the broader category. Purchase price, less any discounts you might be given. I didn't mention taxes, but usually we're talking about sales tax there. Transportation or shipping. Transportation and shipping mean the same thing. Installation, testing, trial runs, and reconditioning. Land, real property used in operations. So there's a difference, and you guys actually saw this last semester when we were working on the balance sheet. Maybe you recall, maybe you don't. Land held for speculative investment. Like I'm holding on to it because I think maybe it's going to be worth money and I'm going to sell it and that's how I'm going to make my money off that piece of property. That's what we mean by speculative investment, right? Or for future use is reported as investments or other assets. So you can have, you can own multiple parcels of land, but if you're not actively using a parcel in your operations, then it has to be separated and reported in the investment section or other assets, okay? Some costs that would get included when you buy land. Purchase price, attorney fees, because you do need an attorney to do paperwork, or at least a title company. Title, what's the title mean? Anybody know what that means? And I forget what I talk about in all, like across the board, so sometimes I'm like, I think we talked about this, but then I'm like, I don't think we have. What's the title? Yeah, it's a legal document that says who actually owns that piece of property, where that information is maintained. Like if I wanted to know who the legal title owner of a piece of property in Loretto, who would I ask? I'd call the I'd go up to the courthouse. The recorder of deeds actually would. Now, if you own a house, then your house is on the books at your county's recorder of deeds office. Commissions, and that's if you have a real estate agent or broker. Back taxes. So a lot of times, people walk away from a property and they stop paying the taxes on the property. The new owner is actually responsible for paying those back taxes if they wanted to take over the property. Somebody has to pay the taxes. Mortgages, I think everybody knows what a mortgage is, right? You know what a lien is? L-I-E-N? What's a lien? A lien against the property.
Isn't it like a bank holds against the property so they can take it?
Yeah, so if you have debts that you're not paying, and somebody comes after you for payment on those debts, in some cases a lien can be placed on your property. I know I told you guys this story, but it's it's kind of a juicy story, so I'll tell it again. Well, I'm not going to say who it is, but someone I know, her father passed away, and when he died, her mother wanted to sell their home, and so she goes to put the house on the market, and she gets an attorney or whatever to help her out, and he says, there's a lien against the house. She thought the house was paid off. A $70,000 lien, which meant if she sells the house for $200,000, she's getting $130,000 because 70 of it is going to pay the lien. Following me so far? Okay. She's like, what's the lien for? The attorney says, back child support. You see where I want? Yeah. So he had a child with someone she didn't know about, never paid child support, and the mother of the child had an attorney that was smart. But that's something that you don't want to find out after your husband dies, isn't it? No. Okay, anyway. Clearing, filling, draining, removing old buildings. So if you have to pay to do any of those things to prepare the land for its intended use, because I go back to that basic definition, that's a cost of the land. So if I plan to build a new building, but I've got to grade the land first, that's a cost of the land, not the building. And again, you'll see that in some problems that we're going to do. Land improvements are separate from land because land does not depreciate. 99% of the time, land appreciates in value. Okay, land does not depreciate. But land improvements, and you can see why, things like parking lots, driveways, landscaping, lighting, fences, sprinkler systems, those things all break and need replaced eventually. So we separate those, a separate category called land improvements, because we do depreciate those, okay? Buildings, that would include any structures like warehouses, plant facilities, office buildings. You can actually purchase those, or you can construct those yourself. So we'll talk about the difference between purchasing and constructing. But mostly what gets included in those costs are the purchase price, attorney fees, commissions, reconditioning. And then we have natural resources, anything extracted from the ground, productive assets that are physically consumed. So we use those up. Like once you cut down all the trees, there's no more of those trees on that property, right? You've depleted the natural resource, and I mean, you're not going to be alive to see the trees that you'll be able to cut down the next time, right? Because it's going to take a long time for those to grow back, right? So that resource has been depleted. And the costs we can associate with those types of assets are acquisition, exploration, like you're digging to see what's in there, right? Development and restoration costs. Intangible assets, we have a little bit more information here about intangibles. And once we get through these couple of slides, I'll let you guys go. Intangibles, these are productive assets that lack physical substance. They have long-term but typically uncertain benefits. And again, the general rule is that we include in the cost all expenditures necessary to get the asset in its proper condition and into the location where you want it for its use. Patents have we talked about that a little bit already, 20-year right to manufacture a product or use a process. You can buy patents actually. Legal fees, filing fees, but not including research and development. And we'll talk about research and development later on. You cannot I don't want to use the word capitalize. You can't capitalize research and development, but I said I was going to use the word capitalize, but capitalize means to record as an asset, which I think we've talked about, but we'll talk more about that on Thursday. Copyrights, exclusive right to benefit from a creative work, such as a song, film, painting, photograph, or book. I don't know why it doesn't say it on here, but it's the life of the creator plus 70 years before anybody can copy it. And pretty much the same acquisition cost there. And then you've got your trademarks and your trade names. Exclusive right to display a word, slogan, or symbol, or an emblem that distinctively identifies a company, product, or service. And those just get re-registered when they expire. I think this is it then, guys. Well, one more slide. Franchises, contractual arrangement under which a franchisor grants the franchisee. So remember how we always remember the O-R-E-E thing? O-R is always the owner, right? Okay. The exclusive right to use the franchisor's trademark or trade name. And you've got all kinds of fees. There's legal fees too. Software development costs. This is where we kind of get into like a grayer area now. Software development costs. This would include any cost incurred to develop or purchase computer software to be sold, leased, or otherwise marketed, or to develop it internally. Cost incurred after something called technological feasibility, which I'll talk about in a minute, but before product release. There's like a sweet spot, okay? And where you can actually record these as an asset. So after technological feasibility, what do you suppose technological feasibility means? It's a fancier term for a very basic idea.
When it can be tested?
Well, it's going to be tested to determine technological feasibility, but you're moving in the right direction. Where the technology that you're saying you're developing it's actually feasible. You know you can do it, right? So there's a moment where it becomes possible. That's what we mean by technological feasibility, right? So from the moment it becomes possible, right? But before you actually release it to the public, that's your sweet spot there for your acquisition. Any acquired research and development. You can buy research and development. You can actually buy R&D. It kind of sounds strange to be paying somebody else to do it for you, or you can internally develop it. So we'll talk about that a little later. And then finally, goodwill, the unique value of the company as a whole, over and above the identifiable assets. Goodwill, and we'll talk, and that says excess of the fair value, the consideration given for a company over the fair value of the identifiable assets acquired. It's a lot simpler than that. You just do the math, I promise, okay? It's literally the difference between the agreed upon selling price and the fair market value of the assets that are being sold. It's that difference, okay? All You guys ready to just jump in for the semester? You excited? All right, you guys have a good rest of your day. See you back here on Thursday. You wouldn't say excited now, would you? It's all what you make it.